Hey you guys, it's me Laura with scrapsoфencouragement.com, and I am here today with some projects inspired by the July 2019 paper pumpkin kit On My Mind. The On My Mind kit came with 3 different card designs, and I do have a alternatives video posted for this kit already. And my thought here was to create one card that looked as close to the card in the kit as I could make it, and then one additional idea card for each suite that was featured in the kit. Now, unfortunately, I do not have any footage from Verdant Garden, and I only have half of my footage from the Come Sail Away suite. So this is a little bit shorter of a video, but I thought I would go ahead and share what I have with you anyway. The first card I'm going to be making for you today features elements from the Woven Threads suite. This suite has a stamp set and coordinating sequins and all sorts of things, but today we're especially going to be focusing on the DSP from this set. It's pretty much the same, just with some slightly different colors as what came in the kit, and we're also going to be using some of the stamps from the Woven Threads stamp set. Now for the background today, I am going to be creating the background. I'm using a stamp from the Birthday Backgrounds set. It's got these lines that are very similar to the lines on the card in the kit. I'm going to use my white craft ink, and I am just stamping up that design. Now one thing you'll notice here is this is not a crisp, clear stamp. It's kind of blotchy, there's kind of spots everywhere, so I am not being careful with inking up this stamp. I am not making sure that I have the ink even or that it's on super well. I am just kind of getting it on there and stamping it so that it has that same kind of variation as the card that came in the kit. And once that is all dry, and if you are impatient, you can use your heat tool to dry it, but once it's all dry, I am going to go ahead and start working on my sentiment and my layers. So I used the stitched rectangle dies to cut out my sentiment strip there, and I am using one of the stamps from the Woven Threads stamp set that says Thinking of You, and I'm inking that up with my Pretty Peacock ink. And then I cut out papers that were very similar to the ones that came in the kit, and these are all papers that come in the DSP card pack. There's the same pattern background, it's just different colors that are featured there, and I even measured the strips to make sure that I got the same size for all the different little colored strips that go there, and I just added those to my card. And then I used some of the linen thread to tie a bow and add it the same way, and I used the coordinating sequins that go with this suite to add a few sequins onto my card, just like the one in the kit, and popped all of that up with dimensionals. And that is what I ended up with, and it's pretty close. Now you could definitely use more of a label punch for your sentiment. There's lots of label ideas all over in the catalog, from dies to punches to all kinds of things. And if you don't want to create the background, there is a paper that has kind of a textured background that's really similar with the Sahara sand color, and you could use that for your background on your card as well. So that is it for card number 1. Next, I wanted to show you some inspiration you could do to get even more out of this suite. So there is a card I made several years ago that I really loved, and I loved the way it looked, I loved the layout, and I felt like this suite really lent itself well to that design, so I made a bunch of these, but I'm just going to walk you through one here. So I matched up all my designer series papers from the kit to see what kind of went well together, and I cut out a panel for the center of the card that went the full length of the card, so it's 5.5 inches, and I don't remember, I think maybe I did 3 for the center panel and then 3.25 for the colored panel behind it. And I also cut out a full card base size panel to make the background of my card and glued that straight to my card base. And then I glued my center pieces together as well. The next step was stamping my sentiment. I used different sentiments on my different cards, but for this one I'm using the Wishing You a Day of Love and Joy from the Woven Heirloom stamp set, and I'm using Pretty Peacock to stamp that on. There's a bunch of little flourishes that come in this kit, and I had done some watercolor painting on this one I did before, but I thought that these flourishes worked really well. So I went ahead and used them and just stamped around, and I picked to use Rococo Rose for this one. I could have used terracotta tile. I could have even used the Pretty Peacock, but I kind of wanted it to stand out a little bit from that. So I stamped that on. So after I stamped that on, it was time to add my linen thread. So what I'm doing here, it's hard to see on the camera, but I've taken my thread and I wrapped it around that panel 3 times, and I attached it with some double-sided tape. And then what I do is when I turn it over, see how I'm bunching that up in the middle, and I just secure that with my dimensionals that I'm going to use for my sentiment circle. And that way it holds all of those kind of together to give it that gathered look in the middle. And then I'm popping the center panel up with some dimensionals, and I add that to my card base, and that is it for the outside of the card. For the inside, I decided to use my detailed trio punch to add a little bit more interest to that panel to write on. And I also used the big textured stamp to just add a little more to the inside of my card. And then I added that to the card base, and that was it. Now, I thought I would show you a few more of the designs that I did using this exact same technique. I added some pearls and some sequins on some of them, did the insides a little bit differently, but that gives you some ideas of what you can do. And I made 2 sets, one for me to keep and use and one for me to give away as a gift. So that is it for card number 2. Card number 3 was actually really easy to duplicate as well with the Come Sail Away suite. I used the Sailing Home stamp set and the Smooth Sailing dies, I think. So for this one, I used a balmy blue card base because there was a striped piece of designer series paper that came with the Come Sail Away DSP that went perfectly with the card. So I went ahead and pulled that out and added that to my card base. And since we were doing blue, I used my stitched circle dies to cut out a blue stitched circle, a balmy blue stitched circle, and added that straight onto my card. And then I cut out a little tiny strip that was 2.5 by 1/2 inch. And again, I just picked something that was very similar to what was on the card that came in the kit, added that on. Now, I had to do something different for my sentiment strip. So I used one of the dies that came with the bundle there, and I just used the banner, and I'm using the Thanks stamp from the stamp set as well as some Night of Navy ink. Then I used Night of Navy to stamp the largest sailboat that comes in the stamp set. Now this is not as big as the sailboat that came in the kit, but it will work just fine. It's just going to be a little different look. And I cut that out with the dies. You could definitely hand cut that out if you wanted to. Then I used some soft suede to cut out the ship's wheel as well. And now I'm just securing all of this down with a combination of liquid glue and mini dimensionals. And I used the mini dimensionals to secure that wheel down. I just cut them in half so that they would fit a little bit better behind the wheel, and that just kind of popped those up a little bit. Then again, another linen thread bow, which these seem to be very popular for the paper pumpkin kits. And I just used some glue dots from the kit to put that down, but you can get glue dots separately from the catalog as well. And then it was time to add a few more sequins from the Woven Heirlooms sequins mix again. And I just used my Take a Pick tool to get those glued down. And that was it for card number 3. Now I'm going to throw another picture here in at the end of another card I made with the Come Sail Away suite. I'm sorry I don't have the footage for that, but I hope that you enjoyed these cards that I created for you today, and I hope that they were inspiring for you. Be sure to check out my blog where I've listed all the supplies that I used, and I have more close-up pictures of these there as well. As always, I hope you find joy in creating as you spread kindness and encouragement with your scraps of paper. I'll talk to you later. Bye.